In this tutorial, we'll build modern neumorphic radio buttons in Java Swing. Let's start by creating a new Java class named NeoRadioDemo. Let's add our imports. Swing gives us all core Swing components like JFrame, JPanel, and JRadioButton. Empty border lets us add clean padding around panels and controls. Basic radio button UI allows us to override the default radio button look with our own painter. We pull in graphics types like color, layout, and graphics 2D support. Event for mouse adapter and mouse event let the whole row respond to hover and clicks, not just the tiny radio. Ellipse 2D helps us draw the circular shapes in the selected dot for the neumorphic style. Now let's define our NeoRadioIcon class, which actually paints the button. We start with a constant size of 22 pixels for the outer circle. The ring thickness is 2, and the inner dot is 10 pixels across. For colors, we create a soft gradient base from light blue to slightly darker blue. Two shadow colors, one stronger and one softer, give depth to the neumorphic effect. We also set a light blue for the ring outline, and finally, a vibrant accent blue for the selected dot. We create a soft gradient base from light blue to slightly darker blue. A semi-transparent white will serve as our highlight. Two shadow colors, one stronger and one softer, give depth to the neumorphic effect. We also set a light blue for the ring outline, and finally, a vibrant accent blue for the selected dot. Next, we override the getIconWidth and getIconHeight methods. Both simply return our constant size value. This tells Swing that our custom radio button icon will always be a perfect square, 22 pixels wide and high. Next, add override method paintIcon. PaintIcon method requires parameters component, graphics and integer x and y. Inside paintIcon, first cast the component to an abstract button and grab its button model. That lets me read states like rollover, pressed, and selected. We create a fresh graphics 2D, translate to the icon's X and Y position, and turn on anti-aliasing for smooth edges. Next, Create a gradient paint that blends from our light base color at the top, down to the darker base color at the bottom. This gives the button its soft vertical shading. Then define a circular shape, using ellipse 2D. That circle will be the foundation we use to paint the radio button. Before painting the base, add depth with two soft shadows. First, set SH1 and fill a slightly offset ellipse for the long shadow. Then switch to SH2 for a lighter, tighter shadow. These two passes create the neumorphic lift. Now fill the main circle with the gradient to give it volume. On top of that, paint a translucent white gradient from top left to bottom right to create a gentle highlight across the surface. Draw the outer ring next, set the stroke to ring, use the ring C color, and trace a circle inset by half the stroke. This outlines the control without a heavy border. If the button is hovered or has focus, I show an interactive glow. I increase the stroke to about 2.8, reduce opacity to 45%, switch to the accent color, and draw a subtle ring just inside the edge. Then I restore the composite so later paints are unaffected. When the user presses the button, render a soft inner shadow. A radial gradient paint fades from a gentle dark center to transparent edges, and filling the circle with it gives that pressed-in feel. If the model is selected, draw the inner dot. Calculate the center, add a tiny white highlight 1 pixel higher for a lifted look, and then fill the dot with the accent blue to clearly indicate selection. Finally, I dispose the graphics 2D object to clean up and avoid leaking any render state. Next, we define the NeoRadio UI class, which extends basic radio button UI. Inside, we keep a reference to our custom icon, NeoRadio icon. We override getDefaultIcon so every radio button in this UI uses the Neumorphic icon. In Install Defaults, we still call the parent setup, then we adjust the icon to text gap to 12 pixels. This gives us a clean bit of spacing between the circular button and its label text. Now let's create our custom radio button. We make a static class called NeoRadio that extends JRadioButton. Inside the constructor, we call the parent with the text label. Then we set the button to be non-opaque so the background shows through. We apply our custom UI class, NeoRadio, which will handle the neumorphic painting. We give it an empty border of 8 pixels on all sides for clean spacing. We enable rollover effects so the hover glow can show. And finally, we disable the default focus painting, since we'll handle the styling ourselves. Now let's create a helper method called makeRow. It takes the label text, the button group, whether this radio should start selected, and a label that shows the user's choice. First, create a new J panel with a border layout. Set it to non-opaque so the background color shows through. Next, make a new NeoRadio with the provided text. If selected as true, this button will be checked by default. Set its foreground color to a dark bluish tone and give it a font size of 16 points. Then add it into the shared button group, so only one radio can be active at a time. We attach an action listener so that whenever this radio is clicked, the label at the top updates to show the current selection. To make the entire row interactive, add a mouse adapter. On click, the radio is set to selected. On mouse enter, I enable the rollover state and repaint, so the hover glow appears. On mouse exit, I turn rollover off and repaint again. This makes the row feel alive, not just the small circle. Finally, add the radio button into the row's left side using border layout west, then return this panel to the color. With this helper, we can quickly build rows of Neumorphic radio buttons, each tied into the group, and automatically update the selection label whenever the user clicks. We start in main and call swing utilities invoke later. This runs our UI code on the event dispatch thread, the safe place for all swing updates. Inside the Lambda, create a JFrame titled Neumorphic Radio Buttons, Java Swing. Set the close operation to exit the app when the window is closed. Next we give both the frame and its content pane a soft light blue background, then set a border layout so we can place a header at the top and our card in the center. Next, we create a label that shows the current choice. It starts with selected, none, centered, in bold sans serif 16 point. Add a bit of padding with empty border, then drop it into the north region. Now the main card, a J panel with a slightly darker blue background, a comfortable 24-pixel padding, and a grid layout with one column and 14 pixels of vertical spacing. This is where our radios will live. We create a button group so only one radio can be selected at a time. Then add 3 rows using make row, primary, secondary, and tertiary. The first one is pre-selected. Each row is wired to update the header label when clicked. Now place the card panel into the center of the frame so it expands nicely and stays visually balanced. Finally, we set the window size to 420 by 300, center it on screen with set location relative to null, and make it visible. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more Java Swing tutorials, and stay tuned for the next project.